Being a sales professional is like running your own business. There's always way too much to do in the allotted time. Therefore, there's going to be 4 things that we discuss that we can help use to manage our time more efficiently. The first one, and this is going to be the easiest one to master, is called the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique is based off a simple timer. Now, the reason it exists is because we know that as humans, we're not robots. We can't just clock in at 9, clock out at 5, and be the same maximal level of effectiveness the entire time. Our brains need to do some resting. So therefore, what you want to do is make sure that you set the timer for 25 minutes. During this time slot, we need to make sure that we're ultra focused on one specific activity. This activity can be cold calling, emails, planning for our accounts, but what we cannot do is think that we can multitask during this time. Multitasking, as it comes back to learning science, we know that multitasking is a lie. You can only focus on one task at a time. The reason why is there's some cost to switching gears, getting into the same mindset that you were to solve the task at hand. You know, there's a study out there that shows that it took 8 minutes for an engineer to get productive again after reading an email. We all think that we can manage our time effectively by doing a lot of things, but ultimately, to get the most productivity, just do one thing at a time. And this is where the Pomodoro technique comes in. And what you can do to just make it as easy as possible, pull out your phone, put it on your desk, and just set the timer for 25 minutes. Now, during this time, you put this phone on your desk so that you can see the time clock down. That will remind you to stay focused on the one task at hand. Turn off Slack, turn off Facebook, turn off text message, anything that could distract you. Make sure that during that time, you're laser focused. And then after that block is up, you have 5 minutes and you can completely relax. Do a break, make a coffee, go talk to a colleague. But the trick here is also set a timer for 5 minutes. This can be a time where you accidentally get distracted and then take a longer break than necessary. So ultimately what you can do is set multiple Pomodoros within an hour. So do another 25-minute chunk and then set another break. And this way you can maximize your time by focusing on one activity. Think about putting in these time blocks on your calendar because that leads us to the next time technique. Time boxing is a really powerful tool to help you visualize what type of work that you need to do. So if I assume that we have 5 days in a given week and I want to make sure that I plan my time accordingly, I will put in certain windows of time that I know are going to be more effective for certain types of activities. For example, I know that doing research Monday morning is a great use of our time. Because if I were to do calling or emailing during that time, I know my customers are also going to be swamped with the amount of emails and phone calls that they need to catch up on from the weekend. Therefore, let's maximize our time. Monday morning, great time for doing research. Set a Pomodoro to say these are the accounts I want to break into, and this is what I'm going to try and accomplish within that window. Therefore, when I go to my calendar, I can have different time blocks that are colored for different types of activities. For example, if I know that blue is just an internal thing that I want to do, like research, but then someone books a meeting on my calendar or a customer gets back to me and says, that's the only time I can meet, no problem. You can just move this time. With a quick glance at your calendar, using colors can help you realize what are internal meetings, what are customer meetings, or different color codes for on-site versus online meetings. This can be a really valuable technique, so at a chance, you can maximize where you should be focusing your time. Now then, we need to get into what most people accidentally use as their management box, the activities that they need to do. This is going to be called the Getting Things Done Quadrant. I first learned about it from Stephen Covey's book. He described the top Fortune 500 CEOs do something special with their to-do list. It's not just a list of activities, because we know as humans that it's much easier to try and just get a lot of things off our checklist, and therefore we're going to focus on the easy things. Because every time we cross something off, we get a little dopamine hit. This feels good to cross something off. So if I think about my timeline is instead of just a top-down list of things to do where I know I'm going to prioritize the easy stuff, what we realize is that we can now focus on quadrants. So we're going to have 4 different quadrants to focus on. The first quadrant is going to be the most important and urgent things that we need to do. Then as we go down the list, there's going to be less important things. So if you think about this as the rows, it's going to be important and not important. Now, as my columns progress, I'm going to have different colors to represent what we need to do in these columns. This top column here is going to be urgent. So everything in this first column is going to be urgent. So we got urgent and important is in quadrant 1. These are going to be the fires. This is what you want to make sure that you handle right away. A customer can come back to you and say, the system is broken, I need your help, I'm not able to use it, or it's impacting my business. And you know that is top priority, something that you need to handle. So make sure that you put out those fires by focusing first on quadrant 1 activities. Quadrant 2 activities, these are going to be something that are not urgent, but they are important. Now, if you think about this, these are the things that are going to help you maximize your career. We know that important things that are not urgent, they're easy to push off on, but we know they're important for our career advancement or to be successful in doing our job properly. So the problem with quadrant 2 is it's easy to push off, and if I don't schedule it, oftentimes I'm going to miss out on it. So quadrant 2 activities could be something like what you're participating in now, some sales training. These are things that you know are important for your career, but if you have something urgent to do, maybe you're going to push that off to the end. I think the best example that I know of is thinking about flossing. We all know that flossing our teeth is important. Every time we go to the dentist, they always remind us, make sure that you're flossing your teeth. But if I skip one day, it's not the end of the world. We know that flossing is not urgent, but it is important. However, if I keep pushing off flossing week over week, month over month, ultimately I'm not going to achieve my dental hygiene goals. Same thing happens with your business. When you're running your pipeline or running what you need to be doing as a sales professional, those are the things that you need to make sure that you put into your calendar, and it really helps you focus on what is most important. Quadrant 2 is going to be the key things to help you progress. Quadrant 3, this is something that is urgent but not important. For me, this example of urgent, not important are things that I can delegate or things that I can put off, because these are the easy things to handle. For example, one of the main reasons I check my voicemails today is just to get rid of that pesky red number. Same thing for Slack. Slack always notifies you, and just looking at what that message is can make you feel like, oh, that's urgent because the notification comes up, but not necessarily always the most important thing to check. So make sure that you don't get distracted with quadrant 3. It can feel good to get those things done, but you end up spending a lot of time there. And quadrant 4, this is going to be the not urgent and not important. So those are the types of things that you shouldn't probably be doing at work, because if you can put it off and it's not important, why are we even doing it in the first place? So think about organizing your to-do list instead of a top-down list. Instead, put it in these quadrants, and this will help you maximize your time. So one of the things that you can do for that is just create one of these quadrants on a piece of paper and start off your day. Spend 5 minutes putting everything down that you want to accomplish, and make sure that you're prioritizing it in the appropriate spot. And if you're not sure what a project where that fits in, you can always ask your manager or a colleague just to bounce some ideas off of. This is a really valuable skill, and this is something that I use personally, and it completely revolutionized how I was able to get more things done. And finally, to tie in these 3 types of techniques, I'd like to visualize with you a really powerful time management technique from Benjamin Franklin. He described the day as a cup of water. As the time goes on, water is going to fill up this cup. Now, this is something that is inevitable. There's always going to be water coming in. But we need to go back what we learned so far on some best practices with time management techniques. Most of us tend to fill our day with easy to do items like sand. These are going to be something that takes a minute or two, very easy to do, and we usually like to do those first thing in the morning because we can get a lot done and feel productive. But ultimately what happens, if I realize that my time can be broken up into sand, pebbles, and rocks, if I fill up my entire water glass with sand and then try and do the pebbles, the things that take 5 to 10 minutes, or then the rocks, things that can take 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours to do, we might run out of time in that day. So if this is visualized, what you would do is fill up the bottom, the first things first, with sand, then you fill up your time with pebbles, and then you go into trying to maximize the bigger important things. And let's say you have 3 things that you want to accomplish, but ultimately you run out of time. So what he suggests instead is make sure that you maximize your time based on what you want to accomplish. So if I draw this cup of water again, I want you to schedule out those boulders. Make sure the top 3 things that you want to accomplish today, that you know are important, to make sure that you have a great day, that you've satisfied what your goals are, what you're looking to accomplish. Plan that out either by time boxing or by putting it in the right priority list. Know when you're going to do it. Then, when you have some smaller tasks, the things that you know that you want to focus on that are relatively easy but take some critical thinking to accomplish, you can pepper those in around the bigger ticket items. Maybe you have 5 minutes between a meeting. Maybe you know that you want to do this type of activity right after lunch. So if you think about it, this now will help you accomplish what you're looking for. Because then throughout the day, you just go back in and fill up the sand when you have a couple extra minutes. These are things where you can look at Slack or your email and just decide for yourself when you want to manage those projects. So convert this old school way, combat what naturally goes on in our head where we're trying to just do the easy things first because we feel good about it. Instead, focus on what's more important. Build out your time management technique however you think helps you the most. Choose one of these 4 and get really good at it. Don't try and do all 4 at once because ultimately the only way to be productive is to hold yourself accountable to what you're trying to achieve.